Hello and welcome to True Crime Guys Podcast. I'm Lorne.
And I'm Michael.
Welcome back. If you're a regular listener, if not, welcome in. We're just a couple guys that sit around and talk murder and joke around and get sidetracked and talk about stupid stuff.
And sometimes we talk out our asses. And by sometimes, I mean every episode.
I was going to say, you mean most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
And then we get called out for it on the internet, and then we go, did you think we actually knew stuff? Because we don't.
That's where you went wrong. No, we need to do a things we got wrong at the end of this one.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, we'll do it.
You're right that we do need to do that.
Yeah.
I just took some, bunch of vitamins, so they might kick in pretty soon, and I might be burping up garlic.
Quote, unquote, vitamins.
It said odorless garlic. I guarantee you I'm going to be burping up garlic this whole time. Uh-huh. You're lucky you don't have, smelly earphones right now,
right.
People listening.
Hopefully that windshield soaks it all up so it doesn't make it over here to me.
All right. Well, let's do the podcast.
All right.
What people call love is just a chemical reaction that compels animals to breed.
Horrific. That's the only way I can describe it.
It hits hard, then it slowly fades.
But little did anyone suspect the time bomb that was Bradford Bishop. Bradford Bishop was a man of many accomplishments. Ivy League education, 2 master's degrees, and a desirable career.
So Brad Bishop was a Foreign Service officer, highly intelligent, 5 or 6 languages. Seemed to have this all-American family, high school sweetheart, 3 good-looking kids. Traveled around the world, belonged to the local tennis club. Just appeared to have it all.
That wasn't enough for Brad Bishop. And one day allegedly snaps.
Horrific. That's the only way I can describe it.
This suspected mass murderer could be anywhere. On the other side of the world, or in the checkout line right in front of you.
All right, Michael, our case this week
is William Bradford Bishop, Jr.
We're going to call him Brad because
that's too long of a name.
Yeah, and Brads sometimes are douchebags.
Yeah.
Not all of you.
No.
If you're a Brad listener and you're cool.
Well, what about Brad Kalin? Way to go.
Huh? Brad and Kayla?
No, Brad Kalin, one of our listeners that does the Two Crime Guys Tuesday now. Way to go.
Yeah, dude. That guy's awesome.
He just debunked that myth.
Yeah, dude. Brad, you're a good guy. This Brad, not so much.
Nope.
Now
this one.
Now we got to call him Bradford.
Yep. We can't even disgrace him with Brad's name now.
So who is this guy? Just a quick synopsis. Why are we talking about him? And how did you find him? Because you picked this week's case, and this one's good.
Right. This was a recommendation.
Oh, so you didn't pick it?
No. Well, I picked the recommendation. I don't pick all of them.
Well, let's give a shout to the person that actually picked it then.
Okay,
and
fine.
mute your phone so it doesn't go off.
All right, I will. Okay, so this case was suggested to me by Keely Smaka on Facebook.
I like that name.
Or Smaka. Probably Smaka.
Smaka.
Yeah, I don't know. But she suggested it, and I looked it up, and not many people have done it. And
it's
it
right
has
up
a lot
our
of
alley,
conspiracy stuff, so I got all excited.
Yeah.
Before I actually found out how the murder was done.
Right.
So I may have committed a little bit early, but either way, I think this is going to be okay.
Right. Yeah. That was a shock to both of us.
Yeah. When we got to that part in the book, I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. We just ran out and got the audiobook, not really looking too far into it.
Right.
Like, okay, he must have killed somebody, and then he's on the lam. I don't know. He's out there.
Yeah.
And then we listened to the book, and when it gets to that part, we're like, "Oh boy."
Yeah. The conspiracy and MK Ultra was enough to sell me. I didn't need any more than that.
This one's dark. This one's dark, and there is kids involved, but it's not like. It could be worse, but it's bad.
I don't know. It's pretty
bad. Yeah.
All right. You ready to get into it then?
Let's do it. William Bradford Bishop Jr. He was born in Pasadena, California, August 1st, 1936. Shares a birthday with Jason Momoa. Good-looking bastard. Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
He's a beast. He can throw axes.
Yeah.
I saw a video on Facebook. It has to be true.
Yeah. Also Coolio.
Of course.
Gangster's Paradise.
That's right.
And Madison Bumgarner. Is that the baseball player?
Yeah, he's a pitcher for San Francisco. Who's got 3 World Series rings? Just that guy?
Yeah, okay, just that guy.
Yeah.
He was the only child of William Bradford Bishop Sr. and Lobelia Bishop.
Lobelia. Very good.
Yeah, Lobelia.
You got it. You got it that time.
I like it. Only child. Makes sense when you learn about his personality. I was an only child as well.
It does.
We're a little spoiled. We're a little bit egotistical. The world's about us, you know.
Well, you
I was
said
only
it.
child. I'm saying all the stuff you're thinking, Michael.
Well,
I'm just gonna say it for
makes
you.
it easier, I guess.
And anybody that knows me is thinking as well. His father was an independent geologist. I guess it was dependent on like the oil, right? His job, like if things were going
Yeah.
well in the oil industry, they were like you were a millionaire.
well.
If they weren't going well, you were fucking broke.
Yeah, pretty much. He lived a life like that. And apparently, his dad was
pretty
terrible
well,
with
though.
money because I
Really?
mean, like over a long span.
Yeah, well, he
because
did-
they had times of extreme wealth and extreme.
Yeah, because like they had
Poverty.
He got to Brad. He got to do a lot of stuff when he was younger.
Yeah,
They got to
yeah.
travel a lot. He lived kind of a privileged life.
Right.
And he was also just gifted in general. Like he was good looking. He was the quarterback of the high school team.
Right.
He ended up marrying the cheerleader.
Yep.
You know,
he had it all going on.
Yeah, the all-American boy, I guess you could say.
But I feel like he was all about that status.
Oh, no
From a
doubt.
young age.
He had to have been raised wrong in a sense that like his parents must have just taught him that the only way to be is to be the best at everything, you know?
Yeah,
it just seemed like that he
But it
could-
seemed like the things he concentrated on were very stereotypical things. I feel like he wanted that. He wanted that presentation more than anything. Like he
Yes.
played tennis and football. He probably tied a sweater around his neck. You
Oh,
know?
no doubt.
He was that kind of guy.
Yeah,
Blonde hair,
definitely.
comb over, riding around in a convertible.
Fucking closet full of carnigans.
Yeah, exactly. That's his glove box probably smells like tennis balls or something.
Spit shine shoes, all that shit.
Yeah,
And this is the 50s. He's going through high school. He probably had
right. And
convertible.
then he has to be the quarterback. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. He's like Bryce on 13 Reasons Why.
He's probably the cocky kid that was like beating up on nerds and you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think he was absolutely. He was tall. He was athletic.
Yes, he's what 6'1", I
Yeah.
think. After graduation from high school, he went to Yale, where he would receive
Of
his
course,
bat-
that's what you do,
right.
or like Cornell or something.
Yeah, but Yale's the one.
Yale's the
That's
one.
That's the sweater wearers.
Yeah, Harvard and Yale, they're like
Right.
they're right neck and neck.
Yeah, he would go on to receive his bachelor's in American Studies and History. After graduation from Yale in 1959, he married the cheerleader who we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Annette Weiss, who came from a less fortunate family, and he would always remind her of
Oh,
that
he didn't
too.
let her forget about that.
No. That was like a power thing for him, I think. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, she's the hot cheerleader, and also I can hold her down. She's
Right.
She's lesser than type of thing in his mind, even though she wasn't, because she probably was a much better person than him.
Sounded like it at first, at least.
Right. He then had to enlist in the Army. I guess there was still a draft going on. This is during the Cold War times when he graduated from college, the 60s. And he was sent to become an intelligence officer, which is what he preferred. He really didn't want to be
Yeah, but
like
I think
infantry.
he had a much greater fantasized version of what an intelligence officer was. I don't think he was ready for what he got. I don't think he felt so
Seemed like
special.
he enjoyed it. He ended up being a spy. He spied on the Croatian, wasn't he? He spied
Yeah,
on the,
but he just monitored dialogue from a computer. He wasn't like undercover or anything. He wasn't like coming out
Infiltrating
of
the-
ceiling tiles.
he wasn't infiltrating the ski team, like trying to talk Croatian and ski and shit.
I mean, that was the highlight of his career, was just trying to join a Croatian ski team.
Right.
Other than that, he just sat behind a desk and watched.
Well, he learned some valuable stuff
Conversations
though.
on a computer.
While he was in the Army, he learned Serbo-Croatian.
Well, yeah,
at
because
the-
he studied conversations. He had to know these languages.
Right, but I mean, he enjoyed it. I think.
You think so?
As far as
I think it
having
was a stepping stone for him.
well, yeah, that's what I'm
That's
saying.
it.
He was all about his resume,
Yeah.
trying to build up as impressive as a resume because he had goals to someday be super
Right.
important.
He forgot to be a good human though, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Right. So what he would do was he would spy on the Yugoslavia. He was working in Verona, Italy, and he spent his days listening to a radio broadcast and military radio intercepts to gather intel on the.
Yeah, this is where his career was kind of.
They were basically trying to get like defectors, right? They were trying to he was trying to get people from Yugoslavia to come over to our side to become spies or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And it was completely unsuccessful. He accomplished nothing really, other than he learned the language and learned some spy shit, but he never really went on to use it.
Right. But he loved that place though.
He did.
I think that's
Oh,
why
he loved
He was probably
Italy.
really drawing that out.
He loved Italy. It was his favorite place in the world, and a lot
Yeah.
of people think that we'll talk more about it later, but that maybe he ended up there again later
Maybe
on.
he's still there.
Right.
Shit.
He loved the Swiss Alps and skiing, and he became a badass tennis player, a badass skier, and he would not.
Right.
He refused to lose, and anytime you'd beat anybody, he would put it in their face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Such a douche. It sounded
He
like
was a
people. There was
douche.
quotes from like guys that he went to college with, like his bunkmates and stuff. If they were playing like even ping pong, like table tennis, he's just like, I hope your kids aren't going to be as bad as you. Like just say stupid shit like that.
Awful things. like, yeah,
Like I'm
everybody
really better than you, man. Like, I'm like you're never going to beat me. It's
Face
just,
it.
It's sad.
I'm an undercover intelligence officer, okay?
And I'm better than you at ping pong.
And right.
By this time, Brad and Annette had a son named Bradford Bishop III. Of course, he would name his kid his name. If you do that, that's fine. But like this guy is such a guy that would do that.
Yeah,
I'm surprised he
is.
didn't have all three.
Maybe
of
his dad was like that.
I'm surprised it wasn't Bradford Bishop III, and then when he had his next son, wasn't Bradford Bishop the Fourth, and then his third son was Bradford the Bishop the Fifth, and
They just end up calling him numbers. 3,
Brad 3, come here.
4, 5. If you don't get in the shower, I swear to God.
Brad's commander in the Army described him as acting without hesitation and made all the correct decisions. He was known for taking on tasks that were difficult and sensitive, i.e., an example may have put his team or other people in danger. Like he didn't really care as long as it was making him look good.
Right. Well, like we said, he was all about that presentation, man. He wasn't looking to live a full life, I don't think.
That's so sad.
He was doing it all for the wrong reasons. Everything about him, even down to his personal life. I think he was building a resume. You're right.
Yeah. He claims during this time that he was a CIA liaison in Germany and served there for almost a year, but there's no evidence to support this other than what he said. And we know
CIA
how he was all
also
about his image, so
doesn't credit that
it.
either. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what sparked so much of the conspiracy theories behind things that would happen later on, because there'll be connections to the CIA again that we'll talk about. He would end up leaving the Army in 1963, but he remained in Florence to learn Italian, because we talked about how much he loved it there.
Right.
And he would pick up yet another
Yeah.
language. He would go on to learn.
Italian. Sure you did.
Right.
Skis are getting a lot of work, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. He took a 16-day tourist trip to Yugoslavia in 1964. Now, this was not taken well by his, because he was spying on the Yugoslavs.
Right.
And so this ended up earning him bad reviews by an intelligence specialist because he had a weak judgment by doing such a thing.
Like
He
a
was
2-star
spying-
review right there.
Yeah, like the reviews we get on iTunes. Basically, an intelligence specialist said that he showed weak judgment by putting himself behind enemy lines and he could have been snatched up by the Yugoslavia people and
Right.
used against
Tortured,
the U.S.
all the shit that he knew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not smart. But that tells you something about Brad's personality, though. He's just cocky. He's like, I'm going to go there. I know a lot about
He's a
him. I've been
risk taker.
spying on him. Yeah.
He hasn't been told no up until this point, so why not?
This is like the first ever bad feedback he's gotten on anything he's ever
Yeah.
done, it seems.
Right.
Like, I'm sure his parents, I know his mom doted on him, right?
Yeah.
His dad was kind of indifferent, probably did his own thing, probably cocky like Brad was.
Yeah,
you
probably
know?
wanted to kill Brad.
Yeah. Yeah. In August 1965, he became a diplomat for the U.S. State Department. He would continue to stay here through the rest of the story until things get real bad.
Not his goal job either, but yeah.
Right. Well, this is the beginnings to an end. He wanted to start here, build his resume up more, and
Right.
he eventually wanted to be an ambassador. Was his main goal. His first post was in this job, though, fit some of his criteria as far as he wanted to travel and see the world, and
Yeah.
he wanted to, be a worldly man. He wanted to,
Right.
and so his first post would be in Ethiopia. His wife, Brad III, and 5-month-old son, who they had named Brent, not Brad the Fourth. Close though. You got BR going.
Got VR.
They went with him at this time, and this is where we start to see into the psyche of this guy, because he starts a diary during this time while he's in Ethiopia, and he would continue to put entries into this throughout. And you see that he's not the perfect guy that you're seeing outwardly.
Right.
If you're just a stranger or a friend or a family member, you know.
To me, a lot of his entries just really gave you a look into his self-centeredness.
Yes.
Like a lot of it were about him or motivation for him or
Right.
how his career is doing. And,
Yeah.
how do you have a family? Well, he's got a family of 3 at this time, but he'll soon have another son, end up having 3 sons. And there's nothing about them hardly in there.
Right. There was quotes. What was the book that he was quoting through it?
It was by Walt Whitman.
Right. And there was all the quotes that he was put in there. They were all about life on the road by yourself.
Yep.
It didn't really seem like a family suited what his ultimate goals were. He wanted to be this ultimate impressive dude, and I think a family suited him for a while.
Yeah.
But after a certain point, I think he viewed them as just holding him back.
Right. Well,
You know,
I
and
think
this is
at
where you
first
start
he
to see
viewed
it.
them as, like I said, necessary. Like it's something you needed to have to be
Yeah,
at the
an
level he
image.
wanted to be. Because
You couldn't just be some loner and expect
Yeah.
to get promoted. You
right.
needed
Because
to
then
have
they're like,
the-
"What's this guy's angle? Like, what is
Right.
he?" Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in Ethiopia, and he's got kind of a desk job, and he's just trying to plug away and put in his time and hoping
Right.
for opportunities. And he then gets transferred to Milan,
which he's stoked about.
He's back in the Italy, mindset, the high fashion culture, country club status. And a lot of that status came from his mom helping him out and giving him money.
Right.
He wasn't making a ton of money working for the States Department yet. He's still on the lower end.
Yeah, he was.
And his mom, who was a widow, his father had died, she had some money from his dad, and she was helping them out. And she would end up later on living with them as well.
Right.
Then he worked there for a while, and they would end up moving to Los Angeles, back to California, where he grew up. Then he was sent there to earn his master's in African Studies in 1970 at UCLA. And his goal here was to kind of get into a niche in the States Department. He noticed that there was like a weak presence in Africa as far as the U.S. diplomacy and whatnot, so he wanted to get in on the ground floor over there.
Right.
It worked out. After getting his degree in African Studies, he would go on to be the deputy chief of missions at the U.S. Embassy in Botswana.
It's kind of a big deal for him. I think if he liked the country more, I think he would have stuck around here.
Excelled more.
Yeah, he would have excelled here, but he just wasn't the right geographical place for him, I don't think. At least he thought so.
Right. He would end up even becoming acting ambassador whenever the ambassador was out of the country in Africa. So that was like the dang goal. He wanted to be an ambassador, right? But probably not where he was in Southern Africa.
Exactly.
But by this time, Brad and Annette had their third son, Jeff, and Brad's mom, Lobelia, was living with them, and we kind of alluded to.
Yep. Jeff. Brad, Brent, and Jeff. Jeff, little oddball you.
Right. By now, Annette was suffering from panic attacks. Brad was on antidepressants and seeing a shrink 1 to 2 times a week.
Yeah, apparently his family was driving him crazy here.
Family's driving him crazy. I think he's seeing like he's getting older and he's not progressing in his career the way that he wanted to.
Yep.
Things aren't panning out fast enough for him. He wanted this fucking straight shot to the top.
Yeah, they say like when you're in your late 30s, you either start to see your hard work paying off or you like miss the boat.
Mm-hmm. And he
felt like he missed the boat.
Yeah, which is silly because me looking at him like what we do and what he.
I know.
Like,
it's like
damn,
you're
bro,
almost an ambassador, bro.
Yeah, an ambassador in Africa.
You were not only on the boat, you're fucking driving it. You're good.
Yep. But he set these high standards. You got to be careful. Like, you got to be careful with that mindset of like, when I get this thing, then I'll be happy. It's like, if you're not happy now, you're probably not going to be happy just because something happened. Like,
or because you obtained something.
Especially if you've already got like the main essentials of life. If you got food on your table and you're healthy. Like if you can't find a way to be happy with that, this like next promotion is not going to ultimately make you happy. I don't think it really isn't.
You're right.
But he was just always waiting for that thing to happen that was going to be okay. This is once that happens, once I become ambassador,
right?
That's when I'll be happy. Yeah. And so that's why he's seeing therapy because it's not happening and all this stuff. Even though he's very active, they love to go camping, they love the outdoors. He seems like a good father during this time.
Even all that, I think all that was still for show. They just wanted to display this lifestyle.
Yep.
Like they had a very like bohemian apartments and things like that.
Right.
Very minimalist lifestyle before it was cool.
Yeah, except when higher up heads at the State Department would come into town and then he would change his bohemian apartment, bring in furniture and put on a show for them so that he could try and kiss ass and get a promotion.
If looking like you had more money and weren't all charitable was more appealing, then he would take on that lifestyle.
Yeah. In 1974, the family was sent to Washington, to D.C., to work at the State Department. Brad hated being in the States and fiercely competed for jobs overseas because once he was back in the States, he was just yet another
Probably because everybody
diplomat.
knew here that he was an asshole.
That too.
Nobody wanted to work with him.
But he was like just a small fish in a big pond here, whereas if he could be, like when he was in Southern Africa, he was like, there was a smaller pool of guys doing what he was doing, so he had more opportunities.
Right. And he's also having an affair at this time. Something that's kind of playing into all this.
Something that would come out later that really wasn't known at that time by anybody around him. But yeah, he was.
So he's
a busy guy.
Right.
He's hitting the tennis courts, hitting the ski slopes. He's got this big fancy job.
Right.
The family, 3 boys. And he's got time for side piece.
But he hates most of it, apparently.
Yeah. His family's driving him crazy. His job's
he's seeing
terrible.
a therapist right now and talking about his job that he hates. His family's getting on his nerves. His mother's getting on his nerves. And
nothing. Some people, nothing's ever enough, right?
I don't think it ever would be for him.
No, I don't. I think if he became ambassador and he got that job, it'd be one more thing he has to do, and he'd be miserable doing that after a year.
I think if no drugs at all were involved, no hard drugs or any kind, then this guy's just a sociopath.
Yeah.
I think he was just a sociopath from the beginning.
Yeah. Weird.
Out for self-gain.
Yep. His mother, during this time, so they moved to D.C., and he's working at the States Department in D.C., And so they had to find a home because they were going to be there for a while. And so his mother, Lobelia, loaned $30,000 to Brad and Annette to put down as a down payment on a 4-story split-level house in Carter Rock Springs, just outside of Washington. Real nice community. They fit right into the tennis club, and they, instantly they're kind of like seen by everyone around there as like this perfect all-American family that moved in. All the kids are doing swim clubs, and,
Yeah.
Brad's hitting the ski resorts and showing everybody up and letting them know how much
playing
they suck.
badminton.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A foreign exchange student from Italy named Gabriella stayed with the bishops for a week before the incident that we're about to get to, and described them as a loving family and happy, but Brad did not talk much.
He was tense. Everybody was saying he was tense at this time,
Yeah.
especially. All the friends, and even Annette was starting to gain some of these characteristics. They said even she had kind of lost like an inner shine, a little inner happiness that she always had.
Right.
She was like volunteering at the local schools and stuff, and she just was very short-tempered with some of the kids. And
Well,
things
by
like
this
that.
time, Brad had been in therapy 1 to 2 times a week for almost 5 years. He was seeing a guy by the name of Frank Caprio, who he became real close with, and the guy apparently knew a lot about him. And the cops would later go to Frank Caprio, and he would say that I'm not cooperating with you. He used the doctor-patient privilege, right, to not disclose any information about the things that was going on in his head.
Right.
And after the events we're about to get to, when the police were pressuring Caprio, he was so shaken by what Brad had done that he ended up quitting his practice.
Is there any...
And what's interesting is that working at the U.S. State's Department, Brad, he didn't disclose that he was doing this therapy to
Right.
them. And if he had, and the State's Department knew about this, he may have lost his security clearance, and which means he wouldn't have been able to work overseas anymore.
Yeah.
And so this may have been something that was bothering him leading up to this day that we're going to cover.
Right. So do you think he said anything about this to the therapist?
I don't know.
Is there any kind
about
of...
stuff that was going on in his head and things he might do?
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's weird that it's not weird. I mean, I guess a shrink really, it is kind of their,
Yeah.
they're not supposed to disclose what's said in there.
No, it's law, but for him to feel so guilty about it, you feel like he must have known or had some sort of inkling.
You do, right? That he closed down his practice
Yeah.
and I don't know. It was pretty horrific.
It's a heavy burden to deal with either way, even if he was doing everything
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So we're getting to a day here we've been alluding to. The day was March 1st, 1976. A lot's been building up with Brad. He's kind of like at this point of no return where he's very depressed. He's been seeing the shrink. His finances are not real good. His mom's finances are running out. She's
Yep.
not really able to help them anymore.
That's right. He's bringing home like $26,000 a year, something
Right.
like that, roughly.
And
this
for
time.
their lifestyle, that's not much.
That's not cutting
Even back in the 70s,
Right.
It's not enough. His relationship with his wife's not all that great. He's telling people that work with him that his family's driving him nuts. His mom and his wife are driving him nuts.
Right.
He can't stand his job anymore because he knows there's a promotion coming up on this day that we're talking about. March 1st, 1976 is when the promotion list is posted. Mm-hmm. And he knew like 2 weeks in advance that
He wasn't gonna be on it.
He wasn't going to be on it for whatever reason. They passed over on him. But I still think that there was that little inkling in his head, like things can turn around if I do
Yeah.
show up and somehow my name is on the list.
Yeah, what the hell? Like, let's just see what happens.
Because most stuff
Yeah.
you watch YouTube stuff on this case, it's like
Yeah.
they act as though he showed up and he was just shocked by the fact that he wasn't on this. But the book that we read basically
Yeah.
said that he knew weeks in advance that he wasn't going to be on it.
Right. I think there were things in his diary alluding to that as well, that
Yeah.
he knew that he wasn't going to get the promotion.
Yeah, so he goes to work. He rides his motorcycle, a Honda CB360. He had just a quick highway drive straight to work. Just one road all the way there. Nice, beautiful drive. He loved being outdoors and everything. He drives in and feeling like this was his life, stuck behind a desk, pushing papers, living in a crowded house with his mother, kids driving him mad. This was his one chance to get out if he got promoted and got to leave
right.
and go somewhere else,
Yep.
maybe work overseas again. And he
Yep.
sees the listing posted and he's not on there. And his coworker described his reaction and how angry he was. And he kind of because the coworker we're talking about, who later talked about it, did get promoted. And Brad was
Yeah.
just dumbfounded how that guy could get
Yeah.
promoted and how he couldn't get promoted.
think it could have been
I'm obviously
anybody.
so much better than you, bro. How did you get promoted and not me?
Right. Could have been like freaking Mark Cuban, and he'd have been like, "How did you get promoted?" And
Right. Exactly. You're obviously a dipshit. You're on your own basketball team. Like, come on.
Come on.
Oh, also, it's important to note that Annette was going in a different direction than Brad at this time. His wife was pursuing an art degree. She was happy living where they
And
were.
by a different direction, we mean doing something for herself for once in her entire
for once,
life.
because she's not. Her whole life has been being Brad's little pet.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
like his image wife, and he's even in his memoirs, didn't he put something about she was like his slave or something, or he's told someone that.
Yeah, he did tell her
The book
something like
mentioned a
that.
quote where he described his wife as doing dishes and being his slave or something.
Yeah.
Really terrible to say about your wife if you love her, you know?
Right.
Anyways, she's pursuing an art degree. She's really loving the community they live in right now. She doesn't want to. She doesn't want the ambassador life anymore, or the diplomat
well,
life. She
this
doesn't
is
want to
finally a
travel.
place to settle down. It's safe. The kids are good, doing good in schools.
You've got
and
3
things
kids.
Like that.
You want to keep
Right.
uprooting your kids, moving to other countries,
Right.
And so that's driving him nuts because he thinks his wife's holding him back from his
Yep.
dreams. And so when he sees the posting, he ends up leaving work early and saying he's not feeling good. And he would leave work. So one of his coworkers offered him to give a ride because he said he wasn't feeling good. He said, "I'm fine." Leaves on his motorcycle, where he goes to a. Did he go to like a gas station or somewhere?
Not yet. First, he goes to the bank.
The bank, that's
and
what I meant.
drains the freaking bank account. They
whopping-
only had $400.
I was going to say the whopping $400 they had
Yeah.
left in their bank account. He swipes. He then later that day goes. Well, he went back to the house, got the station wagon, right?
Right.
And then he would go on a little shopping spree. He would go to a local Sears and buy a mini sledgehammer. I forget what they
Yep.
called it, but it's like a 10-inch sledgehammer. It's not your full size.
Yeah, it's like a 10-inch, 2.5 pound.
We use these at work all the time. It's like
Yeah.
a 2-pound little sledgehammer. He would buy one of those. He would buy a 2.5-gallon gas can, which he filled up at a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
Then he went to a local hardware store called Polk Hardware and bought a pickaxe and a shovel. So he got a little killer kit going here.
Yeah. What's it? Neil Falls kit.
Yeah,
He's got the Neil Falls starter kit.
starter kit.
Just go into Polk Hardware and ask for it.
Right.
Run
And-
special on Tuesday.
God. He's not smart here. If you're
No.
planning on doing something, you just don't go around buying everything that day.
Well, he paid cash with everything for everything.
Still, this is a small town.
Dude, for all you know, he's going home to do some yard work, okay?
Yeah.
For all you know.
He would arrive back at home around 9 p.m. They had dinner. He had dinner with his family. The kids went to bed. I think he even had, like, his son was talking to a girl on the phone. He told him to go to bed, got on the phone and said,
Yeah.
"Shut up and go to bed."
Yeah.
The 2 youngest, Brent was 10 and Jeff was 4, shared bunk beds. And Brad the third, who was 14, was the one that was on the phone. He had his own room. They were all on the 4th floor of the house. Annette, she was down on the lowest level in the den studying for her art test. Mm-hmm. And Lobelia, his mother, who was 68 years old, took the dog for a walk. And I guess a neighbor saw her around 9-something p.m.
Yeah.
walking the dog.
Yep.
And it was while his mother was out walking the dog that he took out his act that he'd been planning apparently for a while,
Apparently he snuck up behind his wife.
using the mini
Started.
sledgehammer. This is where it gets real graphic. Using the mini sledgehammer, his wife was sleeping on like a futon downstairs.
Yeah.
And one blow to the head crushed her cranium, and he continued to hit her. It was the brutality of which it was.
The coroner made a statement of the brutality of this killer is
It was like
unmatched.
he described
because-
it as a beating, not even just
because
like.
one hit most likely killed these people.
Right.
And they just continued to swing.
He was a fit guy. He was, even though he was in his 40s at this time, he was
Right.
180 pounds, 6'1". He played a lot of, he's doing skiing, playing
Yeah.
tennis. He could deliver quite a blow with one strike that would kill his wife, kill any of his kids. But he
Right.
continued to deliver blow after blow. So after killing his wife, she stayed right where she was on the futon. He went upstairs to the 4th floor and attacked each of his sons, which is just terrible to think
don't
about.
know how.
I
That's
don't
what
even
I'm
want to
saying,
go into much detail,
sociopath.
but just to think that both kids were on like the same bunk bed and he had to have attacked one at a time. The other one had to have woken up. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know how you can like nourish a now that we both have kids, I can kind of talk from a place of like somewhat of being there. How you can like,
I can't fathom it.
yeah, I don't
can't
even,
do
I'm
it.
kind of speechless. Like how you can raise a kid and then go on to kill it like that. It's just beyond me. That's the
That's what
worst
I'm
kind of
saying.
person in the
It's-
world.
This guy had something else going on upstairs, man. There's just no way. There's no way anybody.
Like you said, must have been a sociopath. Just no emotion, no like other than for himself, right? It's
It had to be. It had to be. because it's just,
How your personal, because when you
he must have never created a connection with these children.
he couldn't have, even
Never,
though like you
ever.
see photos, like they look like a happy family in a lot of photos when they're out on ski trips and
Yeah.
camping and stuff, and like you see him, there's pictures of him holding his son when he was a little baby, and
It's like he was playing somebody else for the first half of his
yeah,
life.
was he like out of body during those times? What? I don't know, man. Just kind of speechless. It's crazy. The book was very graphic. We're not going to go into a lot of it. I mean, some of the evidence that was found later on in the house is brutal, like scrape marks on the top of the roof on the top bunk of the bed.
Right. And they said that Brad the Third's face was beaten so bad they couldn't even take a picture of him for the
Autopsy.
for the brochure for the funeral. They couldn't even
Yeah.
they couldn't even recognize him at all.
Yeah. So then when the mother would return, Lobelia, she would hear something or see something that scared her enough to where she locked herself in a bathroom, and he would then force his way in. And what's
it's
crazy is that he didn't use the sledgehammer on her. All she had
Nope.
was like slight marks on her neck or like a bruise on
Bruise
her
on her
forehead.
forehead, yeah.
They said that she could have just died from fright, or maybe he
Fell and hit her
strangled
head or panic, yeah.
Yeah, something happened. But to think he killed his own mother too. This guy's just an animal, absolute animal.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's unclear how that happened.
Right. So then he would then take the bodies and pile them into the family station wagon, where he then headed on a journey.
Yeah.
That led him-
almost 300-mile journey that he had planned out. He had to have planned this out.
Oh yeah, no
before.
doubt.
All
He
this
knew where
had
he
to
was
be
going.
planned.
He went
Yeah.
to where he went to. Where did he end up? It was in North Carolina, right? So he's going.
Right. Headed down to Columbia, North Carolina, which is close to the coast.
Yeah.
It's like on a little peninsula and off.
But he ended up going into like some kind of a logging path that like you could only find
Yeah.
if you had like a detailed map, and
Right.
like it seemed as though he had been there before.
You may have shit.
Right. Well, he was a survivalist. Like
Yeah.
he's self-proclaimed survivalist. He was really
Right.
interested in that. He wrote in his journal about how he would love to
Live off
take
the
his
land
family and see how long they could last, and they'd have to work together to survive, and yada yada. Obviously, he was in a different mindset at this time when he was more about what his future was going to hold alone and not
Right.
with his family anymore. And so he did take the family dog, his golden retriever,
Right.
was the only one that survived the night that lived in that household.
Yep.
And so he packs up the dog, and there was some dog later on when the car would be found. There was dog treats still in the car where he was feeding the dog on the way, and he had his entire murdered family in the back of the station wagon.
Yeah, he laid down the back seat and just threw them all in there, I guess.
Yeah.
Covered them up, I suppose. Doubt they had tinted windows.
He drove so far that he barely even had enough gas in the car on a full tank to get where he ended up. And
Right.
it makes you wonder if he brought the gas for that reason, in case he ran out, just thinking about
Yeah, could have.
if he had to have gone to a gas station to fill up, maybe getting spotted, and
Right.
with all the bodies in the back of the car would not be a good.
Right. But he actually ended up using the gas for something else. So he did make the whole trip. And mathematically, investigators figured out that car could have actually made that trip. Just barely.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder if he'd made the
Yeah.
trip before.
Right. So he gets out there and he starts digging, but the problem is that
Frozen ground.
Well, not only that, the sand in there. There's so many like little rivers and streams. The ground is it's so sandy.
Yeah.
You try to dig a hole, the sand just keeps pouring down in there. So he was there for like 2 hours and dug a 2.5 foot deep hole or something like that.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of debate. There's some experts, so-called experts, that say that because what he ends up doing is he tries to dig the hole. He gives up,
Right.
puts all the bodies in this very shallow hole, and then decides to try and burn them or cremate them.
Right.
Basically takes that gallon of gas that he had and dumps it all over him and lights it up. But it doesn't go well. He starts a fire, which ended up spreading like 3 acres
Right.
by the time he left. And some people say that he wanted them to be found there, and it doesn't make any sense to me. I actually got angry
No.
when I heard.
No,
as I
he
watched-
did not want him to be found.
Yeah, well, I think it was the book we was talking about. There was like two experts that say like that he wanted them to be found, and it's like,
Yeah,
why
there-
would he drive 400 miles into a middle
there
of
was-
nowhere into a logger's path and
Yeah.
try to dig a hole? And then it was a last second desperation move. He realized he screwed up,
Right.
And he was just trying to cover his tracks at that point. But
I think he was just trying to burn them to make less mass in the hole. Like I think that was his basic thinking. He's like,
then-
if I burn them, then it'll just be ash. Then I can just cover them up. That'll be easier.
but being in the woods, other things lit up,
Oh yeah.
and it became a disaster.
And
And
apparently there was like a military base close by with like a tall watchtower, and someone had seen the smoke from
Yeah.
above the trees.
So that same night, they end up finding the sheriff goes out. First, like a fire ranger goes out, right?
Yeah.
It thinks it's like burning hog parts or something.
Yeah. That was
and
common for that area.
discovers human body remains and
Right.
calls the sheriff out. Sheriff comes out and sees just the worst thing that part of that state has seen in a long time.
Yeah.
People still remember
Maybe
it. to this
ever.
day. Yeah.
Maybe still.
It was a real quiet town that he had dumped
Yeah.
these bodies out of, and that's why it became such a big deal. A manhunt ensued, but the problem was this was so far away from where the family was murdered. They didn't know who they were dealing with. They didn't know who these missing people were, and
Right.
it would take days for them to find out. Even though he really didn't do that good of a job of getting rid of evidence, the bodies were
didn't.
still decently intact.
Right.
They didn't burn for very long before
Clothes
they
were still
found.
there.
Yeah.
And all that. And
They knew
then-
what they were working with. They knew like it was 3 boys and 2 women.
Right. And a little further down the road, he abandoned the car, right?
Yeah,
He abandoned that car, and then he left all that shit in there.
yeah.
Just
Blood
left-
in the back.
Yeah.
He left like his own DNA all over the
The
car.
shovels.
The dog. Like, there was dog prints around
The receipt
around
to the
camp-
hardware.
around the camp where he burned the bodies. There was the dog's paw prints all around.
Right.
Yeah, the shovel they were able to trace back to
Yep.
the hardware store, and that's where they knew, or they had a good idea of what
Where it
town that
started.
this had happened. And then a few days after the murder, neighbors of the Bradfords, they called to report the family missing. It wasn't like
Yeah.
them to leave and not tell the neighbor. The neighbor was the person that would watch over their house for
Right.
them when they
He
would
apparently
leave.
left the back door open or something.
Yeah,
One of the neighbors walked over there, but was kind of too afraid to go in.
it was Annette's tennis partner went
Oh,
over.
okay.
They were supposed to play tennis that day.
Yeah.
And she went over and like checked to see where Annette was. She went in
Yeah.
the back door for a minute, kind of looked around in the kitchen, didn't see anything out of the norm, and left. And had she gone in a little bit further,
Oh,
she
just
would
a
have
couple
seen
feet, probably.
the House of Horrors, which is blood
Yeah.
all over the house, and
Hmm.
yeah, just
Yeah, that's brutal.
yep.
But you don't ever think that. You're not thinking like, you're thinking, oh, they're probably in there getting ready to come outside and have a picnic or something.
Right. So it would be Monday, March 8th, which was how far after the murders occurred. When was it was March 1st that he killed them, right? Mm-hmm. So a week later, the police would finally arrive to the bishop's house, where inside they would discover everything: the blood, the bone fragments, flesh. And the neighbor we talked about, her name was Sippy Cassis, was shown the flyer and identified the family as because they had like coroner photos
Right.
of the family members that were recognizable.
Right. This is something that's strange to me. They also found Brad's clothes wadded up in the top of a closet.
At the house?
Yeah. Like, why would he do that? Like, so apparently before he carried the bodies out of the house, he changed clothes,
But
put his
left them at
bloody
the house.
clothes in the closet on a top shelf.
Well,
and
he
then
figured
took
the
a
house-
shower and then carried bloody bodies out.
Because he knew he wasn't coming back to the house. And he knew that like there was so much evidence all over that house that they knew that there was going to be having murders occurred there. Oh, you're saying because they knew they were his clothes, they would know he murdered them? I don't think he cared. He knew that the police were going to know he murdered them, but he figured he'd be so long gone by the time they found
I just
out.
don't. Yeah, I just don't see the thinking of changing clothes at all. Or well, I see the
He
thinking
doesn't
of
want to be
changing
out and about
clothes.
with bloody clothes.
But he changed to took a shower, changed to new clothes, and then carried the bloody bodies to the car, though. I mean, maybe he wrapped
Maybe
them
he
up
carried
and stuff.
maybe
but I
he
mean,
carried them out, put them in the car,
you're-
and then went back in and took a shower.
I don't know. That doesn't sound smart either, though, because they're just laying in your car and somebody could walk by.
He put a blanket over them.
Still, your neighbors are going to know that's
I mean,
not
the
normal.
dude drove 300 miles with him in the back. He could have been spotted several times with him.
That's true. I don't know. There's just a lot of weird stuff he did there.
Yeah, so they discovered the house. They then knew the family was for sure the Bradfords. And then we start getting all these weird sightings. The stuff that was in the car, they found a shotgun and maps of the Smoky Mountains and other remote areas, because where they found the car was like another 300 miles away from where they found the bodies, right?
Yep,
It was like
yep.
in Mississippi, right, just outside
Yeah.
of North Carolina. There were also 2 jackets left on the seats. After this, the FBI now became involved because they had crossed state lines and a manhunt ensued. They had pictures of Bradford posted all over. The search started in the Smoky Mountains because that's where the car was found, and they had bloodhounds out there, helicopters, hundreds of people on the ground on the trail, and the trail would eventually go cold. They only found a couple scents near where the car was found. They don't know where he disappeared to. And this is where the story gets interesting, because
Right.
this guy's just gone like a phantom. And this is where we get into conspiracy with maybe different organizations involved in like the CIA, because we saw that one little connection where he said he worked for them. and people start wondering if maybe they helped to hide him away.
And it was just on his resume was the only proof that ever took place. He could have
his word, right?
He could have just been padding the resume with the.
Yeah. But we start getting sightings from everyone and their mom. In July of 1978, a Swedish woman who had known Brad when he was in Ethiopia claimed she saw him in a park in Stockholm, Sweden. 6 months later, in January of 1979, a former State Department employee said he saw Brad in Sorrento, Italy, and identified him. And the man said that he saw Brad, said, "You're Brad Bishop," and then Brad freaked out and ran out of
this guy.
ran into the rain and he lost him.
But in all fairness,
some of these stories
Brad
it sounds so like cheesy, you know what I mean? Like
Brad has one of those faces, though.
Yes, I mean he looks like a dude.
Yeah,
he just looks like a dude.
There's nothing really crazy about him. He could look like a million things. But
Yeah,
that guy that saw him
kind of like
in
if
Italy,
you buy a new car, like you buy a red fucking Fiat, you're going to see red Fiats everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? Like, if you're looking for a guy that looks like Brad, you're going to start thinking everybody looks like Brad all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's true.
Anybody, and you're going to look at guys that have like grown out beards and stuff and like, well, that could be him. Maybe he grew his beard out. He's trying to look like a hobo now.
Yep.
Because a lot of people said that he looked homeless and disheveled.
Right. He's disguised himself to look like a 70-year-old.
But we do have to talk about how
it's been that long.
he was spotted a day after the murders or something in a store. He bought some like Converse shoes.
Yeah.
And he was with a woman.
Yeah, we think this was
is
the
what
only real spotting.
The store owner said that he came in, he bought some new shoes, which makes sense because he would have to get rid of his shoes, you would think. And he was seen with a woman and a golden retriever, or they said a reddish dog, which his
golden retriever was a reddish
color,
reddish tint. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a little suspect because we know he'd been cheating in the past, and that would give some more motive as to get rid of his family if he was wanting to move on and start a new life with a different woman and then travel the world. And a lot like the experts think that he ended up in Europe. I think that's where he ended up. Either he killed himself shortly after killing his family.
Right, because there was a gun that he owned that was not accounted for at the car or at the house.
Yeah.
It was a .38, I think, that was given to him by his father.
Right.
So that he had to have had that gun with him.
He could have definitely wandered out into the Smoky Mountains somewhere. I'm sure that's a big enough area where he could have gotten lost, shot himself. He's the type of guy that his ego was so big that if he was planning on killing himself because things didn't go his way in life, he would take out his family with him, you know?
Yeah.
He wouldn't just kill himself because his ego is like, my family can't go on and have a life without me.
Then he probably did it in some monumental way, like stand on a cliff, shoot himself, fall into the back of an eagle. Get sword around, and the eagle's like, "What the fuck?
That's
Get
his,
off!"
that's his image, that's his image of himself. But really, he's like
really,
eagle,
he just hit his head on like 30 rocks.
Eagle, he shot himself. The eagle flew over, shit on his face.
Caw, motherfucker!
You ain't that cool, bitch. Yeah, so I mean, we keep getting more sightings. I think it's people just trying to interject themselves into the story because this became a huge story.
Yeah.
I mean, this blew up. This was like on the Washington Post in New York.
Oh, yeah.
Now, all of the big newspapers blew this story up.
Just for being on the run as long as he was. The longer it went, the bigger it got.
Right.
So, real quick, let's talk about the guy that said he saw him in Italy.
Yeah.
The guy that said he ran out into the rain and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So this guy apparently...
Honestly, I think that's the most likely place that Brad would have gone is Italy, though. I mean, that's where he seemed to love the most, and it's out of the country. I think he would think there'd be less pressure on him
Right,
there.
and I think that's why they followed up on this guy initially.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the more they talked to him, the more he knew.
Right.
And then he had this notebook that he
was
kept
making
bringing,
shit up the
and
whole time.
and it just kept growing and growing. So they're like, wait a minute. It's like, how does this guy have an in-depth backstory on everybody in Brad's life?
Yeah.
So they actually made up a name of just this random person and was like,
Who supposedly knew Brad.
right. So this guy knows Brad, and he says this. What do you know about him? And then the guy was like, he kind of played it cool at first. He was like, well,
Let me check my
I'll have
notes.
to check my notes at home. I might have some other things. He's like, I'll get back with you tomorrow.
Yeah.
So apparently he went home and wrote all this bullshit about this fake person.
Yeah.
Comes back, and then the cops are like, yeah, we don't need you anymore.
Right. That's my sister's daughter, by
That's
the
my
way,
sister.
that you just talked about. And that shit's all fake.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so the case would kind of go cold after the Sorrento sighting, and in 1991 it would get revived by a guy named Ray Kite, who happened to be the sheriff of Montgomery County during this time. He was surprised when a man in Sacramento appeared to have the same social security number as Brad, but when he pulled the information, he found out the man was dead, and in the photo it was proved to not be Brad. So it was just, I guess the guy just tried to steal his identity, stole his social security number.
The guy was wanted for that, actually.
Yeah.
But what happened was Brad had a cut on his back. It was like 6 inches. It was like an incision, something that he had as a kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really clear about that. I'm not sure what that was. But the man that died didn't have it. So
okay.
it was
Yeah.
clear that it wasn't Brad.
That was one of the biggest things they used to, like, if they
Yeah.
would get a guy that they were pretty confident might be him, they would pull up the shirt, see that there was no scar, and go, okay, we got the wrong guy.
Yep.
And this is almost 2 decades we're talking about at this point. 92.
Yeah.
The murder, I mean, he's been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
But there's still people that are obsessed with this case because it was such a big deal. There's people now that are getting involved that they were kids during the time, and, like, they just couldn't let this case go because it affected their childhoods. Like, they weren't allowed to. It was so dramatic in the area where the bodies were found for some people that, like, their parents didn't allow them to go outside anymore.
Right,
like,
because the motive was unclear for so long.
Yeah,
they
was
didn't
just-
know if this was just a random act of violence, somebody just killing complete families,
Yeah.
dumping them in the woods, or what?
Yeah, 2 detectives in the early 90s were assigned to go through the Bishop files at the State Department. They found a letter from a prisoner named Ken Bankston, a convicted bank robber who was serving time in Marion, Illinois. It hinted that Bishop was trying to hire a hitman to kill his family, and also mentioned an unnamed mystery woman in North Carolina.
Which they said they can never find her.
Right, and this
I'm
guy,
like, how
Ken
hard
Bankston,
is it to find a woman that's still in prison? I mean, if
yeah. Well, the guy Ken Bankston was kind of known to do this. He was locked up for a long sentence, and he would like see big stories pop up in the news, and he would like interject himself and like say he knew
in
information
exchange for a lighter sentence,
Exactly, and so
Yeah.
initially, when the detectives that were assigned in the early '90s to this, they were like, nobody followed up on this Bankston letter.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, this could be a big thing. And then they found out that they actually did follow up on it back in the 70s, like right after the murders had happened. And they discredited this guy because of his history of interjecting himself into stuff.
Right.
The letter had been written 2 weeks after the murder.
It's kind of interesting. If you got nothing to lose, you got nothing to lose by trying that as a criminal.
Right.
Who knows? Maybe they do take your word. Maybe you do get lighter sentence.
Yeah. He
worth a shot.
The letters had been dismissed as a hoax, and Bankston died due to cancer in 1983, so they couldn't even talk to him by the time that they re-looked at these letters. The Dixie Mafia and the Aryan Brotherhood now come up in this story, were two groups that were
God.
suspected in the plot to kill the bishops. This is one of those things where it's like the telephone game. The longer you go away from the murders themselves, the crazier people's theories get.
Yep.
They just start assuming that he's involved in all these different conspiracies. Like, he's involved in biker gangs. He's involved in the CIA.
He was in D.C.? The Aryan Brotherhood was in D.C. once.
A man named David Paul Allen, who was also mentioned in the Bankston letters, claims that the Aryan Brotherhood was given $25,000 in pieces of valuable jewelry to kill Brad's family, but they took the money and never did the job. So then Brad had to do it himself, obviously.
Yeah. But how would Brad have gotten that money? He barely made that a year.
Exactly. And his mother was dried up on
Yeah.
money, and that was a big part of his frustration as to why he got rid of his family to begin
Unless
with.
he said that he put $30,000 down in the house and he only put $5,000.
Right? Took the other 25 to the Aryan
Yeah,
Brotherhood.
because they said he put $30,000 down payment right before this.
Right. None of that was ever confirmed, obviously. There was also a theory that Brad's week-long training in Geneva, he was in Geneva a week before the murders, and some say that was to cover up the fact that he was hoping his family was going to get killed that week. He'd supposedly paid somebody to kill his family while he was in Geneva, and that the people the Aryan Brotherhood or whoever he paid didn't carry out the act, so when he got back, he had to take care of himself.
He was probably in a bad mood when he got home that day. Hey, honey. Hi. God damn it.
Right? You're not dead yet.
Yeah, that guy.
Apparently, during that trip, he spent a few of those days in Switzerland at a ski resort with a woman who was not his wife, maybe the woman that was at the store afterwards buying the Converse.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But apparently he wasn't just with one woman. Apparently there were rumors that he had been with other women,
Yeah.
like ongoing throughout their entire marriage.
Yeah.
That's what makes me think he was never truly connected to his family. He never had a real tether. It was just
They were the image.
They
They were
were-
part of his image that he
Yeah.
liked, just like his resume and everything else.
they were on this shelf of his life, and they just
Right.
stayed there and looked pretty. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds silly because I'm going to compare this case to Wedding Crashers. I don't know
That
if
is
you've seen
silly.
that movie, but Bradley Cooper's character in that movie, he's like this ultra competitive, like all about his image, rich kid douchebag wearing sweaters the whole time.
right.
And he thinks he's better than everybody, and they're playing sports, and he's just like rubbing it in when he beats it. That's who this Brad reminds me of, is the Bradley Cooper character in that movie.
Right.
And Rachel McAdams, the actress that he was with in the movie, she was like his image girl. That's what I think. This Brad,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
kind of the same way. Like, he's cheating, just like Bradley Cooper in the movie was cheating.
Right.
And yet he's mad at her if she's not like the perfect girl for him type
Yep.
of thing. You know what I mean? His
Yep.
family had to be perfect, but he's not. Obviously, he's far from perfect.
Exactly.
But yeah,
That's a good comparison. That's a very
you.
lighthearted comparison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know if Bradley Cooper would smash his kids with.
I don't think so. I
Sledgehammer,
don't think
but-
so. No.
Yeah. So let's go through some more of these crazy conspiracies. Obviously, we talked about the CIA one. Some believe that Brad could have been an unwilling participant in the MK Ultra program, which
Yes,
is a
definitely.
yeah, for sure. That explains everything. I don't know if you guys don't know what the MK Ultra program was. It was a mind control program that started in the 50s through the CIA and ran until 1973, where they were basically using numerous methodologies to manipulate people's mental states and alter brain functions, including administration of drugs, especially LSD and other chemicals, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, isolation, and verbal abuse, as well as other forms of psychological torture. So they were basically taking people, unwillingly putting them on to all kinds of
Right.
psychedelic shit and seeing if they could use that as a means to torture, like get information out of people.
Maybe.
Maybe he
Oh
was
my
a-
God! I
study
just
of that?
connected all the pieces.
Okay.
The therapist was the administrator
Oh, that's why he
of the
disappeared
MK
afterwards.
Ultra
Maybe.
experiments. Yeah, because he was seeing him for 5 years.
Yeah.
And then he felt so bad because it went bad. Like, you don't feel bad just talking to somebody and telling them, and helping them, and then it doesn't go right. I feel like that happens with therapists. I feel like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
That's such a tough job, man. Imagine if you're like,
is.
you try your best with somebody and then it doesn't end well. And you got to, even though you shouldn't, you're going to feel some blame because maybe you could have altered it. Maybe you could have changed the outcome for them.
Yeah.
If you're trying to help a guy's mental state and he goes on to kill his entire family, I
Yeah.
can see why you would quit your practice after that.
Yeah, or if you're giving him LSD laced with
Well,
other
yeah.
chemicals,
That
and then he
too.
goes on to kill his family.
Then you should just feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah.
and
I just wanted to go on
and
the
you should
conspiracy
take
rant
blame.
there.
It is also believed the FBI are helping the CIA to hide Brad, but then there's also stuff we heard in the book where
And-
it's
but
like the
that's
FBI
only-
and the CIA were going at it.
That's only based on a lot of the leads the FBI didn't follow up because they were able to rule them out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's, for every person we mentioned spotting Brad, there's hundreds others. I
Right.
mean, the FBI, they're getting a lot of shit mail.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot of spam in regards to this case. So
Right.
people are they misinterpret the FBI brushing that off because it's an impossible thing as the FBI trying to hide him. And I don't think the FBI was trying to hide Brad, but the CIA, on the other hand, no,
Right.
I don't know.
We know they're suspect.
Right.
In 2012, so we're talking many, many years later, in the 30s and 40 years later, after repairing relations with the FBI and CIA, the new Sheriff Popkin put together a task force focused on catching Bishop. The team had a forensic sculptor make an age-enhanced bust of Brad. So they did like a 3D image of Brad's face,
Right.
what he would look like at the age of 77.
Yeah.
Still trying to catch this guy.
That's like the stock photo on the Wikipedia for some reason.
Yeah, I
That
know,
was
right?
odd. I was like, why is this a
fake photo?
Why don't you put a real photo of him? There's plenty of them.
Right. Yeah, plenty of photos back in his
Yeah, he looks
sweater
like
wearing days.
freaking like Lemony Snicket over here.
Yeah, and this is where they would really do what they should have done a long time ago. In 2014, they put him on the Fugitives Most Wanted list.
Finally.
Finally.
He only had to go 40 years.
Right. At the time they put him on the list, he'd be 77 and on the run for over 30 years. A 1-hour special aired on Bishop, which led to an influx of calls to the tip line, which, like we said,
course.
should have been done a long time ago.
Right.
And it was much to do about nothing at this point. I mean, they have a sculpture image of him, but who knows if that's
And
accurate at all.
With 40 years of age, he could have went either way.
He could have. He
Could
could
have
be
gained
dead.
weight. He could have
He
got
most
thinner.
likely
He
is
could
dead.
Be dead. Yeah.
Most likely he's dead. Supposedly he had a heart murmur
Yeah.
back even then. And I mean, not that that's like a death sentence, but he also had like mental stuff going on, which
Yeah.
they say can shorten your lifespan if you're depressed and and you killed your family and
Or
you
he's
got to
on
deal
the-
with the grief of that.
Yeah. Or he's on the longest, worst acid trip ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't even know where he is.
Still MK
He's in
Ultra
another
in it.
dimension.
As of 2014, of the 504 people that were on the America's Most Wanted list throughout history, 473 of them would end up being caught, 156 of them because of citizen sighting and calling in and tips on the hotline and everything. Super effective means to catching these fugitives.
Wow. Yeah, it is.
So you just makes
Just
you wonder.
awareness.
Makes you wonder if they would have put him on it back in the 80s or in the late 70s, put him
Right.
on that list, how quickly he would have been caught for sure if they would have
Yeah.
put him on there.
But I mean, it's only 10 spots, and also, why do they only have 10
Why not
spots?
widen that out a little bit?
Why not widen it out? Like,
Right?
Why
Why not
can't you
do-
make an exception?
Why not do 10 on
guy-
Monday and then 10 on
This guy
Tuesday?
just brutally murdered his entire family and threw them in a ditch. This guy doesn't care about anyone's life or safety. Like,
Right. And he's on the run.
I think this guy could be number 11. I think we can make an exception.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Why-
I agree. I don't know why it took 40 years to put him on there.
Widen your list a bit.
Yeah.
Top 20? America's top 20?
Hey.
I mean, old people eat that shit up. They sit around and watch that show, and then
Hell, we used to watch a top 100 countdown on fucking VH1.
Right.
But you can't look at 100 top criminals.
right? Yeah. One of the most interesting stories to come out of the Bishop TV special was a story of a homeless man who was struck by a car and killed just 5 years after the murder. And apparently he looked a lot like Brad Bishop, to the point where a couple in Alabama saw the news of the guy getting struck by the car. And then they also saw like they saw a special about Bradford, and they were like, "That guy looks just like the guy we just saw that got hit by the car."
He did look like him, though.
He did. Oh
Yeah.
my God! Way more than that damn generated photo they made later on.
Yeah, there's a Google image comparison, and he did look like him.
Right, but they actually, to the point, he looked so much like him that they exhumed the body to do DNA testing, and he ended up not being him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Another tip came in December of 2014 when a landlord in Mexico suspected his mysterious longtime tenant of being Bradford Bishop. When he went to a nearby hospital, the man refused to give his real name, so the landlord emailed a photo to the FBI, and they were shocked at how much it looked like Brad.
Yep.
Once again, unfortunately, after he finally
Another criminal on the run.
after he gave up his real name, it was discovered that he was a criminal, but not the criminal.
Isn't this bullshit? This guy got caught just because he looks like Brad. Brad, that motherfucker, still ruining lives all these years later.
Right? This guy did mail fraud in '77, and he gets busted now.
This guy was off scot-free, pretty much. This guy was
mail
doing
fraud.
fine.
He didn't smash his family with a sledgehammer. He
No,
just did mail fraud.
little
man.
mail fraud, and this guy gets caught. Son
Right.
of a bitch, Brad.
He put one stamp instead of two, and now he's getting busted because of Bradford. Fucking how many years later?
God.
Damn.
Damn, Brad.
Right. There had been hundreds of sightings worldwide, none of which ever paid off. There had been bodies, lookalikes, prank calls, but ultimately he still remains at large 41 years after the murder.
Yeah. There's been novels written about it, detective magazines, crime books, but a lot of the novels they fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
So they just take his basic story and then answer all the questions, supposedly.
Yeah.
So there's not been anybody to take it real serious. And it wasn't even a whole lot of podcasts out there. There was one. Right? Beyond the Blood.
Beyond the Blood, big shout out. That was a great episode.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, we
Very
listened
well
to it.
done.
Yeah. It was different. It was just the facts. One guy telling the facts of the story. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah,
Good
check
show.
it out.
Needs more listeners. Beyond the Blood, man.
It really does.
Really
It's
well done
underrated.
show. I've seen some shows that are bigger that aren't as good.
I agree.
We won't shout them out. So check that one out, man. Hopefully we brought some more to it. You know, obviously we do things differently. We're like more of a conversational podcast, whereas
Right.
Beyond the Blood's just telling the facts. So
Right.
good
All right.
shit though.
So is that it?
Hope you guys
That's
enjoyed
your
it.
thoughts? So what do you think? What's the most likely thing?
I think
Italy.
he went to Europe, and I think he's probably been dead for a while. I don't think he made it
so?
to his 80s. He'd be 80. He'd be something in his 80s now.
Okay.
And I think the way his lifestyle was, a lot of stress and I think stress is like the quickest killer of someone. And
Right.
when you're unhappy, I think diseases just flock to you if you're unhappy in general and you have a bad outlook on life. I think
Right.
positivity is one of the biggest factors for longevity in life. People with a purpose, they get up, they're happy, they have a sense of community. You see people that live on islands and stuff that they live forever because they keep working and they just they all work together for a common goal or whatever.
Right, right.
Even when they have poverty and stuff, you see people live a long time if they are happy. I think this guy was destined for unhappiness. Obviously, a guy that kills his family, I think he's dead. I think either he killed himself not long after the murders, or he went to Europe, found out that that wasn't his ultimate source of happiness either,
Right.
and then probably came to the fact that he realized he killed his family and he's still not happy.
Okay, so that's where he ended up. Why do you think he did it?
I think he did it because he was all about himself, and he thought that he lived one life and it didn't work out, and he could start over again. And if he wiped the slate clean by killing his family and just leaving, he knew all these languages. He figured he
Right.
could go to another country, start a new life with his mistress or whatever. I think he's just like you said, a sociopath. He's all about
I didn't
himself.
think about that. How much knowing other languages would really boost someone's confidence. That would really give you, a mental step ahead.
Yeah,
Because I think about that now.
Yeah.
When I run into someone who only speaks Spanish, I'm like, damn, I wish I knew Spanish.
Yep.
I'm like, shit, I wish I knew more. I feel like an idiot
these
trying
guys
to
are probably
communicate.
talking shit about me right now. I can't even tell.
Right. It's like that.
I heard gringo puto. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure.
Could be wrong.
Right. But I didn't think about that, how much that would also fuel his self-esteem probably and his confidence to get out of here and to go through with this.
Yeah.
Because he knows he don't have to stay in America to live a fulfilling life.
Yeah, nothing likable about the guy at all.
You think he ever loved him?
Yeah, I do.
You think he loved him?
I don't know how you could raise. Then again, I don't know how you could raise three boys and
I don't
kill
think-
them
I don't
and kill your
think you-
mom. I just don't.
I don't think you can do that if you ever loved them.
Yeah, I guess not.
Not even, I don't know. I think about my kids on the absolute worst day they've ever had, and I have good kids, but even on their worst day, the love doesn't
Couldn't harm
falter at all.
a hair on their head.
No,
Right? Yeah.
no, I don't get it.
It blows me away that people could be that selfish.
It really does, man. That's what I'm saying. I feel like he was maybe
that's
separated in his mind.
I think that's one of the biggest physiological changes you have as a human is when you have a kid. It's true. What it seems like you would give your life in a second for that kid, even if they're only a day old. You've lived however many years in your life, and immediately you would give your life for that kid.
Yep.
I know either of us would.
Yep.
And this guy kills 3 of his children and his mother and his wife
Yeah,
just to start anew.
yeah. You could never have loved him to do that.
No.
I really don't think so.
No.
Maybe he really loved his mother.
Maybe
he really loved his mother. That's why he didn't beat her.
Who knows? Maybe the medications made him a different person. We've seen it happen before. Sometimes it can go bad. We've talked about it with Kip Kinkle. Sometimes if you go off of them, or you don't use them properly, or if it's just a drug that happens to backfire with you and you become a different person, and maybe your emotions go away and you're just a zombie.
Yep.
Who knows? Because he was on medications. We know that he was on antidepressants.
Yeah. And also he something that we kind of glossed over in his college days, he had actually done little, I guess, mental experiments on himself dealing with depression. He was trying to figure out why he got depression.
Why some days he would wake up and be happy, and other days he would wake up and be sad.
Right. And then a lot of people wrote that off because they said it was almost like trendy to have depression at that time for
during
college
the 50s,
kids.
yeah.
So I don't know why that's trendy, but
It's not cool to write it off. It's like, oh, you're faking it.
Yeah, you're
we
faking
don't
it,
know
man.
that. We just don't know.
And people probably also wrote it off as just him being hormonal. He's still a young adult, 19, 20 years old. So, I don't know.
I don't know, man. It was a depressing case for sure, but
It was. It took me by surprise.
But
It's
I'm
still
like-
a good case. Still a good case.
It is. It's surprising that we haven't seen a whole lot out there. That was a great suggestion. Definitely a great case
Definitely.
suggestion.
I don't-
Anytime we see something that's that fascinating, and then we look into a podcast to see who's done it, and only one's done it, we're like, oh, we got to jump on this now.
Yeah.
Because we really try to not step on people's toes and do cases that
Right.
people just did. It happens all the time, but most of the time it's innocent.
There's so many podcasts out there now. It's easy to do it.
Yeah.
Not realize it.
Right. So
But that's it. That's Robert Bishop.
that's it.
Robert Bradford Bishop. Nope. Bishop Roberts. Nope.
Dipshit Roberts.
See, he's not even that important. I don't even know his name. William Bradford Bishop.
All right, let's do shout-outs. Obviously, we're getting worn down here.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got for shout-outs this week?
I want to give another shout out to Keely Smaka for recommending this case. Everybody that has left a review this week, we've gotten a few new reviews, new iTunes reviews. Thank you guys so much, good or bad. Thanks for giving reviews. Of course, we prefer the good ones. Thanks for everybody who has been hanging out in True Crime Guys closed group on Facebook.
Yep. Is that
That's
still
cool.
there's still activity on there?
There's still activity. People
Light
are
it up,
still
light
talking.
it up, people. Get talking.
People still talking about shit.
I like to go in there and snoop around. I can't respond to anything because I don't have Facebook, but I like to go in there and creep around. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Big shout out to Chrissy Cali Lady. We forgot to shout her out a while back when she made a donation.
Did
so
we?
My bad. Definitely thank you for the support. Thank you for donating, for stickers and everything. And
Yeah.
thanks for listening, and we appreciate you all. Let's see who else I got here. Oh, definitely Brad for sure. He's now got like a karaoke night, but it's True Crime Guys. It's like they all gather at the
Yeah.
bar.
It's
to
like a
listen to
local
our
bar
show.
in Indiana.
Yeah, freaking
cool.
amazing. Yeah, so I'm gonna send him and all of the buddies out there some stickers and stuff so they can
What's up, people? Everybody take a shot on me. Go!
shots on us.
Yeah. Except we're not paying them.
Right.
Sorry.
They want us to make patches, by the way. They want us to make creeper
Oh, yeah.
patches for their jackets because they ride motorcycles and whatnot. We definitely need to do that.
We do need to get. I've been looking into it.
Have you?
I actually inquired about it. I'm waiting on a quote from a company, so it's actually local. So we'll see what happens.
Right on. I think. Thank you to everyone who rated and reviewed this
Yep.
week on iTunes. I don't have them in front of me, but definitely appreciate it. We'll get to you.
Yep. Also, if you're listening to this on whatever platform you're listening to, and you scroll to the oldest episode, and it's not Randy Kraft, that's not our oldest episode.
Go to Podbean.
Right? Go to podbean.com, truecrimeguys.com, whatever, and
Yep.
you can hear all the episodes on there. We've been getting a lot of questions about that. For some reason, on podcast apps as well as iTunes, it doesn't show all our episodes. It cuts them like in half.
Yeah.
So if you're a new listener and you've only listened so far, Go check that out on Podbean.
Or go to patreon.com/truecrimeguys, and you can get
That's right.
5 or 6 Patreon exclusives, which next week will be a new Patreon exclusive episode.
Yep. So there'll be 6 then.
We're
There's 5
taking
right now.
suggestions right now on Patreon. That's another thing that if you get to be more active with us is on Patreon. If you're a Patreon supporter, we listen to your review, your suggestions
Yes.
with a little bit more urgency. We're like, okay,
Yeah, I think so.
they're donating money per month. We're
Right.
we're gonna basically choose somebody's suggestion on Patreon this week for the next exclusive episode.
We are.
And we post all kinds of bonus stuff on there.
Right, even though it might be yours.
Right.
Yeah, it's neither here nor there. People agreed with you, so
Yeah.
that counts.
My suggestion, I said, what do you guys suggest this week? Mine is this. And then they went, I like that. And I'm like, okay, let's do that.
All right, let's do that then. That's all I need. The reassurance from 2 people. Let's move it.
Right. At True Crime Guys on social media, Twitter, Instagram. And then we have our Facebook page. Obviously, you can go give that a like and check it out. That's
pretty much it.
Everything. Redbubble store.
Redbubble
stickers.
store, yes, there's stickers on there. You can donate for stickers. Let's go do Cult Shit stickers.
Yep.
Or Creep Fan stickers. And
Yada yada.
all that good stuff. If you're a $5 up Patreon, you get a gold sticker.
Yep. Little low energy this week. Sorry for that. I don't know. We're just some days you get in there and you're
Listen,
fired up. Some
we
days you're
can't
not.
come in here and just hit home runs every week. It's just
Right.
not going to happen.
Sometimes you're gonna hit a double.
That's
That was today.
or get walked like today. We just
Strikeout like today.
it's like today.
Hey, the picture was hot today. You know.
Rain delay like today. If I could show up.
Right. All right. Well, that being said, we'll see you guys next week if you're Patreon exclusive. If not, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
That's right.
Keep creeping.
Keep creeping.
The white hot spotlight. You had to be a big shot last night.
Break the cycle, Morty. Rise above. Focus on science. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got pancakes back home with syrup on top of them. They're about to hit that critical point of syrup absorption that turns the cakes into a gross paste. And I hate to get all Andy Rooney about it, but I think we all like fluffy discs of cake with syrup on top. And I think we also like to be accused of crimes when there's evidence.